They thought she was just another captive. They thought pain would break her, that death would silence her. But when the human girl's heart stopped and her body went cold, the aliens celebrated too soon. 37 minutes later, her eyes opened. She did not return broken. She returned, changed, and the galaxy would learn fear. They took her in the night. The attack had been swift, surgical, a black streak cutting across the skies above the colony outpost. By the time alarms wailed, the raiders were already inside. Their victims were not chosen at random. They sought the weakest looking, the youngest, the ones most likely to scream when pain was applied. And so they dragged a human girl, barely 20, into their cold metallic hold, shackling her in a chamber built for experiments. The aliens, reptilian in form with obsidian hides and jagged mandibles, watched her with curiosity. To them, she was prey. Humanity was still young on the galactic stage, and the Kravori Dominion saw humans as frail bipeds, their emotions and fragile bodies easy to bend, easy to break. The chamber smelled of chemicals and scorched metal. Her wrists were bound by cuffs that hummed with energy, and her body ached from the stun weapons they'd used to subdue her. She tried to focus on her breathing, but the walls pulsed with a rhythm meant to disorient, to fracture her sense of time and place. They began the process. Needles pierced her skin, electrical surges burned her nerves raw, waves of sonic vibrations rattled her skull until her teeth bled. The aliens recorded every twitch, every cry, studying her reactions like data points in a lab. She clenched her jaw, refusing to scream. That alone irritated them. Hours stretched into eternity. Bones cracked, skin split, yet even as the agony mounted, something within her held steady. She thought of Earth, of her family, of the unyielding stubber. Ness humanity was born with. She gave them silence, even as her body failed her. Finally, her heart could take no more. Her chest convulsed once, twice, and then stilled. The monitors flatlined. The aliens watched as her eyes glazed over. "Fragile," one hissed. "Barely worth the study." Another tapped a claw against the console, unimpressed. It lasted longer than expected. But in the end, it is only human. They catalogued her death as data. To them, she was an experiment concluded, nothing more. They turned away, leaving her broken body on the cold slab of steel, confident the story was over. But for her, the story was only beginning. The Kravori Dominion had perfected the art of breaking prisoners. They believed the human girl would be no different. Every scream, every spasm of pain was to be measured, archived, and used as proof of humanity's weakness. At first, she resisted in silence. Her jaw was locked, her eyes defiant. That alone irritated her captors. They increased the voltage, raised the frequency of the sonic drills, laced her bloodstream with toxins designed to burn her nerves alive. Her body betrayed her before her spirit did. Her muscles tore under strain, her lungs rattled as fluid filled them, her veins burned black with alien chemicals. She coughed blood onto the sterile floor, each droplet sizzling as it hit the heat of the chamber. Still, she refused to give them the satisfaction of hearing her beg. The aliens grew amused. "Stubborn," one of the technicians hissed, its voice like stone grinding on steel. "They think endurance makes them strong, but endurance only delays the inevitable." At the 9th hour, her body began to fail. Her heartbeat became erratic, her breaths shallow and jagged. The monitors blinked red warnings, signaling imminent collapse. The commander of the facility leaned closer to the glass, mandibles clicking in satisfaction. "Observe, even defiance has limits." Her last breath was sharp, almost a gasp, as her chest caved inward. The monitors screamed their alarm, then fell silent. A single flatline tone filled the chamber. Her eyes rolled back, empty, lifeless. The aliens watched without pity, without reverence. To them, this was not tragedy, it was proof. Proof that humans were fragile creatures, bound to their soft flesh and limited biology. 37 cycles, the technician noted coldly, tapping data into a console. "For a juvenile specimen, that is tolerable. Record it, dispose of the remains." The commander turned away, his interest already fading. So much for their legends. Humanity bends, then breaks. It is only a matter of pressure. Laughter rippled through the chamber as they logged their findings. To the Kravori, this was victory, a demonstration that humanity was no threat at all. They did not notice the faint twitch of her finger. They did not see the way her chest trembled, though no air passed through her lungs. And they could not hear the whisper, deep inside her cells, as something ancient and defiant stirred awake. They left her body on the steel slab, assuming the story was over. To the Cravori Dominion, a dead specimen had no value beyond its data. They stripped the Chamber of Power and logged their report, preparing to move on to their next subject. But 37 minutes later, the impossible began. At first it was subtle, barely a tremor. One pale finger twitched against the restraints. A faint pulse rippled along her veins, carrying a glow the technicians had never seen in human flesh. Then her back arched violently as though lightning surged through her body. The flatline monitor shrieked with static. Its display scrambled, unable to register the readings. Temperature spikes, neural activity beyond known thresholds, a surge of cellular regeneration that defied biology. Bones cracked into alignment. Skin stitched itself together as if invisible hands were weaving her whole again. The nearest alien technician froze, mandibles clicking in alarm. Impossible. She was expired. Her eyes opened. They were no longer the soft, frightened eyes of prey. They blazed with a pale, unnatural light, something both human and utterly alien. She inhaled sharply, as though pulling life back into her lungs by force alone. The chamber grew colder, as if the ship itself recoiled from her presence. Slowly, she sat upright, the restraints snapping like brittle glass under her grip. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm but resonant, echoing unnaturally against the walls. One word in her native tongue, unintelligible to her captors, yet carrying a weight they felt in their bones. A promise, a threat. The aliens stumbled back, some reaching for weapons, others too paralyzed with disbelief to move. They had seen captives fight, they had seen prisoners resist, but they had never seen death itself defied. One of the officers whispered the thought clawing into all of their minds. She did not return the same. The girl stepped forward, the steel floor denting beneath her bare feet. Energy crackled faintly around her, warping the air. Where agony had once broken her, something far more terrifying had awakened. And for the first time, the torturers felt something they had never known in their centuries of conquest. Fear. At first, she didn't understand what she was feeling. Her body should have been broken, yet every nerve blazed with vitality. Her wounds were gone, no scars, no pain, only a new strength humming beneath her skin, pulsing like a second heartbeat. The alien guards stormed into the chamber, their weapons raised. They expected to see a corpse. Instead, they found her standing tall, her restraints shattered at her feet. "Contain her!" one hissed. Death was supposed to be the end. For her, it was only the breaking point. The first blast of plasma streaked toward her chest. Instinctively, she raised a hand, too slow to matter, but the bolt didn't strike. It bent. The energy curled in mid-air, twisting as though space itself warped around her, then snapped back into the rifle that fired it. The weapon exploded, taking its wielder with it. Her eyes widened. She hadn't blocked it. She had willed it. The other guards hesitated, but training drove them forward. Two, charged with blades of burning plasma. She moved without thinking, faster than she had ever moved before. Her hands caught both blades mid-swing, her flesh hissing against the energy. But instead of burning, the fire flowed into her veins, absorbed like breath into lungs. With a flick, she crushed the weapons and sent their wielders sprawling. Something inside her had changed. Death had unlocked it, rewired her cells, awakened dormant pathways in her mind. She could feel the ship around her, its lights, its power conduits, the very hum of its engines. It was as if the alien technology recognized her, whispering in codes only she could now hear. The surviving technicians scrambled in panic. "This is not possible," one stammered. "No species resurrects stronger. This is aberration." She took a step toward them, her eyes burning brighter. A console sparked to life at her approach, its screens filling with human characters instead of alien script. She didn't touch it. She commanded it. Systems bent to her will, obeying impulses she didn't yet fully understand. For the Cravori, this was beyond science. For her, it was instinct. "I am not your experiment," she said, her voice steady, her gaze unflinching. "You are mine." The chamber shook. Lights flickered. And for the first time in their cold, clinical history of torture, the Crevori realized they had created something far worse than they ever imagined. They had made her stronger. The first blast of plasma streaked toward her chest. Instinctively she raised a hand, too slow to matter, but the bolt didn't strike. It bent, the energy curled in midair, twisting as though space itself warped around her, then snapped back into the rifle that fired it. The weapon exploded, taking its wielder with it. Her eyes widened. She hadn't blocked it. She had willed it. The other guards hesitated, but training drove them forward. Two charged with blades of burning plasma. She moved without thinking, faster than she had ever moved before. Her hands caught both blades mid-swing, her flesh hissing against the energy, but instead of burning, the fire flowed into her veins, absorbed like breath into lungs. With a flick, she crushed the weapons and sent their wielders sprawling. Something inside her had changed. Death had unlocked it, rewired her cells, awakened dormant pathways in her mind. She could feel the ship around her, its lights, its power conduits, the very hum of its engines. It was as if the alien technology recognized her, whispering in codes only she could now hear. The surviving technicians scrambled in panic. "This is not possible," one stammered. "No species resurrects stronger. This is aberration." She took a step toward them, her eyes burning brighter. A console sparked to life at her approach, its screens filling with human characters instead of alien script. She didn't touch it. She commanded it. Systems bent to her will, obeying impulses she didn't yet fully understand. For the Crevori, this was beyond science. For her, it was instinct. "I am not your experiment," she said, her voice steady, her gaze unflinching. "You are mine." The chamber shook. Lights flickered, and for the first time in their cold, clinical history of torture, the Crevori realized they had created something far worse than they ever imagined. They had made her strong. Ger. Word spread quickly among the ranks. The human they killed had risen again. They whispered her name like a curse, though they had never learned it. Some refused to advance. Others fired wildly, desperate to stop the thing walking calmly through their halls. She pressed forward, step by step, each motion fueled not by rage, but by purpose. Her captors had taught her pain. They had shown her death. Now, she would return the lesson. In the hangar bay, dozens of Crevori soldiers assembled in formation, weapons charged. She stood alone at the threshold, the glow in her eyes cutting through the smoke and alarms. "Open fire!" the commander roared. A storm of plasma bolts lit up the chamber. For a moment the hangar became a sun. When the light cleared, she was still standing. The bolts hovered around her, frozen mid-air like shards of glass. With a flick of her wrist, she hurled them back. The formation disintegrated in fire. Silence followed. The surviving aliens fled, their discipline shattering. Fear spread faster than the flames. And in the chaos, she walked into the hangar's center, her gaze set on the stars beyond the bay doors. She wasn't running away. She was coming for them. The hangar burned behind her, alien corpses scattered in smoldering heaps. Emergency crews scrambled to contain the fires, but the girl ignored them. Her attention was fixed on the control dais at the far end of the bay, where a massive comms array pulsed faintly with power. She could feel it calling to her, not as a machine, but as if it were alive, waiting for her command. The remaining guards hesitated to stop her. They had seen their comrades turn to ash, weapons bent back upon themselves, machines rebelling at her mere presence. Some raised rifles half-heartedly, but none dared fire. Fear held them prisoner in their own fortress. She climbed the dais, her bare feet echoed against. The alien alloy, every step deliberate, defiant. As she approached, the array lit up, screens flashing, consoles rearranging themselves into human letters. The Crevori engineers nearby collapsed in terror, unable to comprehend how their technology was betraying them so completely. She placed her hand on the console. Energy surged, flooding through the ship's network, then spilling outward across the fleet. Alarms blared in every vessel as the override signals spread like wildfire. Captains barked orders, commanders demanded explanations, but it was too late. The girl had already hijacked them all. Across every Dominion ship, across every open frequency, her voice spoke, not broken, not trembling, calm, cold. "You cannot kill humanity." The words resonated through static, carried on wavelengths the Crevori could not block. Every soldier, every officer, every listening ear felt her presence. "You can only make us stronger." She let the silence stretch after her words, long enough for them to sink in. Alien crews froze at their stations. Civilians in distant colonies, tuned to military channels, whispered in awe. For the first time in generations, the galaxy heard not the Dominion's command, but a human voice cutting through their empire's certainty. On the flagship, Overseer Calthar gripped the edge of his command throne, mandibles trembling. He knew the damage was done. The Dominion ruled through fear, through the inevitability of their victory, and now a single girl had shattered that illusion with a message no propaganda could erase. The feed ended abruptly. The ships fell silent. But her words lingered like a shadow in every mind. Not just a warning, a prophecy. The Dominion ship drifted in silence, its once proud corridors scarred by fire and blood. The girl stood at the edge of the hangar bay, the stars calling to her through the fractured viewports. She no longer felt like a prisoner. She no longer felt human in the way she once did. She felt more. Back on Earth, the world was already in uproar. The Dominion had failed to suppress her broadcast. Fragments of her message rippled through human communication networks. Soldiers, scientists, and leaders listened in disbelief. The voice was unmistakably human, yet it carried an edge of power no human voice had ever held before. When her skiff landed in a secured facility deep beneath the Rockies, Earth's leaders gathered in stunned silence. Doctors rushed forward with scanners, but their instruments failed to keep up with her. Her cells regenerated faster than they could measure. Her brain activity flared beyond known human limits. She wasn't simply alive, she was evolving before their eyes. "She's the first," one scientist whispered, "the first of what we could become." The generals looked less awed, more cautious. If one tortured girl could rise with such power, what would an army look like? What would happen if this change spread? But the girl silenced their debate with a single sentence. "They thought they killed me. They only opened the door." Her words chilled them more than inspired them. They understood what it meant. The Dominion hadn't just failed. They had created something they couldn't undo. The reckoning was no longer theoretical. It was already here. And humanity, long underestimated, had just taken its first step into becoming the galaxy's greatest nightmare. On the Dominion flagship, silence reigned in the War Council chamber. The air was thick with dread as Overseer Calthar and his commanders reviewed the intercepted footage from the laboratory ship, the very vessel that was now a drifting husk. They watched the girl die. They watched her body twitch back to life after 37 minutes. They watched her crush their soldiers, bend their weapons, and commandeer their systems with nothing but will. Every frame was undeniable. "She is a weapon," one commander rasped, his mandibles trembling. "Not of flesh, not anymore. She is an aberration," another snarled, though his tone lacked conviction. "A singularity. Kill her, and the threat ends." But the footage itself betrayed that hope. As the recording reached its final moments, the girl looked directly into the chamber's camera. Her eyes burned with that unnatural pale fire, cutting through the lens as though she knew who was watching. And then she spoke. Her lips formed words in a human tongue, incomprehensible to the Cravori, but the meaning transcended language. Every alien in the chamber felt it like claws raking across their minds. The translation software struggled, then delivered the phrase that made even hardened warlords recoil. "I will come for you." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some shouted for immediate retaliation. Others demanded retreat, arguing the Dominion had awakened something beyond control. For the first time in centuries, the illusion of their invincibility fractured. Fear, their greatest weapon, had been stolen from them. Calthar sat frozen, mandibles grinding, his pride torn between rage and terror. This was not simply a failed experiment. This was a message, not just to the Dominion, but to the galaxy. Humanity was not fragile. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was evolving, and the Dominion had been the catalyst. As the recording ended, the girls' pale eyes burned in their minds, unblinking, eternal. The commanders fell into uneasy silence. None dared speak the truth aloud, but all of them felt it, an unshakable certainty spreading like a virus. The humans would rise, the girl was only the beginning, and the galaxy would pay the price.